and I'm happy to talk to you today about some aspects of sacred femininity and how the role of masculinity, of a healthy masculinity, plays in there, and what is the challenge for us women concerning getting out of of being hurt, of our closeness, like being closed, getting out of feeling worthless and sad, and to get into a state of being more present and more attentive and more embodied with our femininity, with our self-confidence, with our self-love, and how to get around all this, which is a huge theme for men and women. But today I want to focus a little bit more on the women, and it's really good for you men to listen to this too, because you're going to learn something, if you don't know it yet, about what is important for us women to get to, in which behaviors, in which states of feeling, and in how we should be interacting with you. And there's going to be coming into game also a little bit of roles of what a healthy masculinity, what is being expected of you, and what we have to expect as women from men to be able to find our ways into rather healthy and really more traditional relationships than we have lived it in the past. So this is a really, really, really complex theme, and I'm getting right into it. I hope you'll stick around. I want to talk about the theme of containment. Containment as a man who is there in all his masculinity, who is there like holding space, who is there to defend, who is there to give safety, who is there to give security, who is there to make decisions, who is there to defend, who is there to inclusively making decisions for himself and for his integrity, and for in favor of protecting a woman and a family, not only by, let's say, observing if something has to be protected here, but by his own integrity and by his own stepping into his manhood and into his decision making in terms of integrity, of getting all the way in with a woman and choosing a woman and accompanying a woman who is hopefully getting all into stepping into their femininity and into her embodying self-esteem, self-confidence, but also vulnerability, where the man can step into the role and into the figure of that person who is naturally decision-making, success-oriented, who wants to protect, who wants to provide, and obviously, which is going to be like one of the important points actually, who will both together, and what a man mainly is drawn to is to have a healthy sexuality, but at the moment this is healthy. Also, a woman obviously desires that, although a woman usually doesn't have that much of a drive, or be it that we women are rather testosterone driven because we are in a rather manly state of minds. It's a complex theme. It's the question of a man taking ownership of his masculinity and of this responsibility and of this provider personality, you can almost say, and of this containment, which he is going to provide not only for himself, actually, because being in this role, he's going to be in his masculine, and he's going to be in his testosterone processes, and he's going to be having naturally, or pulling in naturally, rather a feminine woman who will be prone to opening up, to receiving, to feeling cherished, to feeling happy with that, to enjoying, to being enjoyable, and to be loving in the end, because this is going to be a woman who's going to be self-loving. And there I'm going to step in right into the entire disaster and drama which our womanhood is living since the last, let's say, 40 years, since we have claimed with absolutely good reasons and good ideas of what we want to create, that we said we don't want to be there where our parents were, or those, I mean, my parents were already the people who said we don't want to be where our parents were. They were not happy. So we have created a, let's say, a role understanding of my body is mine. I can do with my sexuality what I want to. I'm not going to be imprisoned in a marriage which is indissoluble. Help me out, you know. And that we said we need to live different ways of getting into relationships and of living partnership. Let's put it like this, partnership. I think that's what it's about, and it's about love, because we can be, let's say, partners or good friends with other people, but we don't share usually with good friends and with other people our sexuality, our bed, our real intimacy. We are just not made for this. We are made for being able to fall in love with one person, you know, we can fall in love with many persons, with many people, but we are drawn, and we have learned this in those last 40 years since the beginnings of the sexual revolution, where we said something was wrong, you know, we need to do something here. And we learned now in the last 10 years that we weren't all the way right the way we were proceeding. Okay, we haven't gotten more secure and better relationships and marriages. We are, as women, the ones who are having to educate children all by ourselves. You know, we're living the drama of absent fathers. There's a generation or generations of men who unfortunately had to grow up without a healthy father model. You know. And this is detrimental to our relationships and to the construction of masculinity and to the construction of femininity. All these aspects, how they play in together. I want to talk about something which is really crucial, which is for me now important to talk about in this video. No one can put you down without your consent. When we are talking today about femininity, or if we talk about feminism, which was the intent to be rather free from arbitrary use or misuse or whatever it was in relationships, and being trapped in relationships because we didn't have the options to earn our own money, or if we would have to like clean floors for really little money, at best having to, you know, feed a bunch of children, which we are having without a man being present. So I understand this aspect, but we have gotten to a point where we as women are at the point where we say we are highly educated. We are, if it goes well, we earn more money than men, you know. We have everything. We have our cars, we have our houses, we have our apartments. We can buy our clothes ourselves. We can go to the haircutter as often as we want to. We can do all these things to say we are so independent. And what is what we are craving most? It is that we don't have connection anymore, that we are not getting into relationships, that we don't live a healthy and a secure sexuality. We can have as much sex as we want to all day long, and we really can do this. And the sad reality is that we don't want to do it anymore, because we have learned that our body is not here a body, who needs to be fed with an orgasm like every once in a while by somebody who then disappears suddenly, and you don't see this person anymore, and we feel all strapped and stripped, and we feel empty, and we feel that the emotional contention wasn't there, or wouldn't stay, so we didn't feel safe, we didn't feel reassured, we didn't feel that there's something which will hold us and which we would be able to give nest to. And we learned that we are craving this, that we are craving, men and women craving having long-term relationships, finding love, and to be there with and for the other person, and to have relationships which last up until when we are aging, to help ourselves out even in later times when we are more dependent on somebody who would be taking care of us, possibly. I mean, this is often named in what women and what men wish for. They wish for a healthy, stable relationship which lasts forever until, you both get old together. It's absolutely clear. So our feministic worldview was probably a good idea. We learn to be educated. We learn to have our own money. We learn to be independent. We learn to deal with our lives in a way that we could make our own decisions, which is good. We learn to be successful, which is wonderful. There's nothing about it. But there is a big part inside of us women which has become so vulnerable, in a sense of not being able to be contained emotionally. So we are rather left alone all by ourselves, to deal with our emotionality, to deal with what has brought us not anymore having big family systems, no longer having small communities, no longer having neighborhoods where we know each other, or lifelong already, where we no longer have responsibilities towards each other. We can go tomorrow and work somewhere, and we can go the next day and work somewhere else, and we never have talked to our neighbors. And what have relationships become? Relationships have become basically the container of two people coming with a huge emotional baggage and having to deal with that. And I want to talk about this emotional, not only vulnerability, like the damage we are walking around with as women, and how this is not really helping us to get into relationships, and less if we are turning into these, I call these beasts, where women start demanding that men be basically their servants, or men wouldn't be any longer necessary, and that men would be the least they would need, in their lives. And what I understand, this is like in reality, this is like a totally oppressed and controlling and anxious and uptight and commanding femininity, which has no vulnerability, which has no love and self-love. This is how I perceive this, which is basically like a trauma-based femininity. It's not even a femininity anymore, because men don't want to be in relationship with these kinds of women, because it's like a second man. Men don't feel attracted by this. And what we crave, we who maybe don't have these high demands like maybe really feministic groups can do this and really represent this, which is respectable for if they choose this. But there's a huge body of women, let's say, who are craving relationships, who are craving relating, who are craving containment, who are craving being held, who are craving being heard, who are craving being attended to, you know. And this is, I think, what we're looking for in this generation, or in like starting up from this. It's even like the younger girls, they start asking questions about this because they want to construct a different femininity. They don't want to step into this weird femininity, which is like a masculinity, which is like yelling and shouting and demanding, and the femininity of rights, where there's no love, there's no peace, there's nothing being whole, there's no containment, as I say. And there is nothing which is attractive to them, you know. I'm talking about how we were wounded and how we come wounded into this world. We don't come wounded, we already come wounded, yes, into this world, because we are coming out of a womb already of feministic thinking mothers, you know. I do personally, maybe you didn't, but it's very much possible. If I watch the videos I am doing about narcissistic mothers, I understand where you women or men are coming from, you know. Narcissism has something to do with this kind of femininity, which is basically grandiose, self-centered, like down, letting down, you know, trying to minimize others. I mean, it's such a weak, it's not femininity. I mean, it is, yeah, it's insanity. And I understand that this has something to do with our social construction of a femininity we have created, which is demanding, you know, which is based on rights, which is shut down to their emotions, which is shut down to giving love, to containing itself, to feeling love, you know, and to forgiving, for example. So it's a huge thing, but I really, really, really want to get to the point where I want to talk about what somebody commented on. I feel worthless and sad. And we do have to deal with this right now. All, and I include myself, you know, women who we have we're highly educated, we're all successful, we're having the jobs in the world, we can do what we want to, but there's a big emptiness which this entire socialization and our incapacity to form healthy relationships has brought us to. And this incapacity has a lot to do with our woundedness and with our incapability to love ourselves, to feel worth in ourselves. Why? Because we had dysfunctional families, because we didn't have containment, we didn't have masculine fathers who were in charge of the family, who felt in themselves being the ones who had to make the decisions, who had to take ownership of their responsibility for a family, because there was never put responsibility into them. You know, it was basically like drawn out of them with birth, you know, as our femininity was drawn out of us basically with birth, and we were like thrown into this world without responsible men, without men who had containment, you know, for our mothers, for their wives, and living in a completely turned over world where feminine roles, which are like kind of written into our DNA, you know, and roles which have much to do with our hormones, with how our brains work. We can see this all in research today. I mean, it's all, you know, you can look at the research. It's totally clear that there is things which are written into our genes which make us prone to live as a woman a feminine way of living, and as a man a masculine way of living. And we did introduce this into behaviors and into traits, you know. Of course everybody can live their masculinity and femininity, or femininity in a masculine energy, or masculinity in a feminine energy. Everybody can do what they want to. But what I'm really talking about is those women today, and obviously those men who don't buy into it anymore, that we are only a social construction of our femininity and masculinity. Yes, we are. Yes, you can do it. But if you are going to be happy, give me a comment down there. And of course, you can be in your much masculine, being a woman and having a long-term relationship with a man who is much in his feminine, and you're going to be happy with this. I don't say this is not valid. I don't say this doesn't exist. I don't say this is nothing you would want to live. I'm talking about those women and those men who are interested in a woman living her femininity and a man living his masculinity in a rather traditional way, yet in a modern traditional way, where we do recognize that we have been formed by society, not only in our wounds, that we get into relationships and we feel worthless and we feel unloved and we feel sad, and that we expect from this one person what, as Esther Perel says it, what before was doing an entire pueblo and an entire village for us, now has to do one man and one woman. This is a really, really, really vulnerable a startup for a relationship, and we learn this, and we start to learn this, and we learn also that if we women don't learn to contain ourselves, to foster self-love and self-care, and to get into our femininity, and to switch into, be it that we are in high achieving jobs and making money and being able to buy all our own things, but switching inside of the relationship into our feminine, into our vulnerability, into our openness, into our receiving, into our, I always call it, to become a nest for a man, into opening up, and into that this man can, this is like a beautiful way of saying it, can penetrate us, and that we don't fall into this temptation to constantly penetrate a man with our demands, with our hurts, with our feelings, with our trauma thinking, with our rights thinking, with our fear of vulnerability, with our fear of being catered to, with our fear of being reassured, with our fear of being whole, because it makes us feel all the emptiness we are carrying around with us. And now when we are getting into a role that we start to open up to our emotions, because it starts feeling secure and safe and contained, what is happening inside the relationship between this man and you as a woman, this is a moment when we are opening up, and this is how we open up a man, and how our relationship can become deeper and closer and more contained in a very natural way, how we like it. We like to be pursued, and we like to be pursued a lifelong in a relationship, and that we learn a new way of sexuality, including where a man and a woman, that we need to learn how our sexuality works, and that a man learns how our sexuality works, that we don't close down at a moment that sexuality is practiced in a way which is in and out, and is a very masculine way of sexuality or how it was taught, because there's more and more men, who are answering me and who are saying, we know about, multiple orgasms, and we know about being containing to ourselves, and we know how to drive a woman, and how to contain a woman also in the sexual relationship. And this is beautiful, but I don't think it's the status quo, and I don't think it's the status quo that we understand in relationships how we need to get there, that our behavior as women is to understand the, let's say, I don't know if I can say, the primary needs of a man in a relationship, to be respected. Some people say to be provided with food and with sexuality, and obviously with trust. Men love to be trusted by us. And if we can't trust because we are living a totally traumatized femininity, it is very hard for us to get to a point with each other in a long-term relationship, and how we need to learn how men need to be, or love to be treated in a relationship in a way that I don't become neither like another man, nor becoming like the mother, or something he's like bossing around like a doormat, Men don't want that. Men want women with standards, with their own perspectives. Men want a woman who stands her ground. Men want women who are intuitive. Men want women who are putting limits. So we need to step into this. This sounds sometimes really counterintuitive to us saying we want to be more being catered to, more being cared for, more being contained. And this is like a man comes into his healthy sexuality and masculinity, and comes into his testosterone processes, while we are so afraid of becoming dependent from men, and we don't need to, because men want women who are capable at their times to hold space, to be there for themselves, to set boundaries, to have their standards, and to make a man understand when he is wrong. But he needs also a woman who is not, let's say, riding on this horse of being so hurt, although we are, men are too, of course. And having to deal with this, in constant accusations, in constant demands towards them, in constantly perceiving this woman as being basically another man next to them, in a decision maker, and somebody who doesn't allow a man to come into to live in this intimacy with a man, to let a man into me see. And if I'm not ready for that, I should wait in my entire dating process until I am able, in following my own story of psychological hurt and of my own traumas, needing to be healed in an outside of this relationship, and then to come back and to allow myself next to a partner with whom I do negotiate my space and the closeness and the distance and the boundaries I need, and the standards I need to be pursued in this relationship. Both of us, we need to discuss these things, and we need to grow with them. And so there's so much damage being caused in our relationships when we are in the dating process, and we're opening, let's say, sexually completely up very early in a relationship. It doesn't really bring us anywhere. You know that? And I think this is our aim, to find ourselves again in relationships which are growing in intimacy, which are growing in emotionality, not purely a feminine emotionality, but emotionality is for me also to be this man who is being respected in the way he is, emotional or stoic, and that this is okay for a woman to accept this as being a very manly trait, that he needs his time out, that he needs his nothing box, and all these funny, depictive ways how men's brains function. That a man needs a sexual relationship and a fulfilling sexual relationship, not like I do it for you, but in reality I hope it'll pass. There's so much challenge in our relationships which have so much to do with me as a woman understanding where are my hurts, where is my vulnerability, where is my loneliness, where is myself being sad, feeling unworthy, and we need to step into this, and we need to heal these wounded points inside of us to be able to open up for a relationship. And for me, this is only possible when we go away of. It is not only possible. You can live the relationships you love. I mean, this is absolutely up to you. I don't want to tell you what is possible or impossible for you, or which has worked for you or not worked for you. But I know, and the Google search, knows what and how many people, men and women, are looking for dating tips and for relationship tips and how to get again into healthy relationships and into a new masculinity, into a new femininity which has much traditional qualities, and what containment means to a woman in a relationship, and what it means to a man to grow into this, to live it, to embody it, I think this is as much as I wanted to say today about dating, about stepping into a sacred femininity. This is so complex. It has much to do with the healing process for us women, but also with healing our sexuality, with healing our femininity, and with understanding our purely hormonal and brain and neurological processes we are living through, how we can step into a rather happy way of living with ourselves and then with the partner, although it is this one-on-one thing where one expects everything of the other and one other everything of us women, and it doesn't work that way. We can't do this. We need to find more contentment in other relationships and understand what a partner relationship, a man and woman relationship means to us, and what it is that each of the partners is looking for, maybe not that consciously, to really become happy in a relationship. So there's something to think about. I mean, this is complex. As I said, no one can put you down without your consent. You are not less because you are being cherished by a man or because somebody says you have to be this or that kind of a woman, and if you're not successful, if you don't earn all this money, you're nothing worth. And it was a little bit like turned around, that we women assume that we are nothing worth if we are only in relationship with men and only having kids and only being at home. And how much do we crave this these days? and not some kind of relationship, but a healthy and happy relationship, like constructing this, building this, and understanding that this isn't against a woman who is educated, who did her studies, who is maybe has been years possibly in a working environment, and if the kids are out of the house, wants to be working again. I don't see really a problem, but I see really a problem if we don't construct our femininity in a way that we can make men happy and men understanding to construct their masculinity to make us happy, and thus learning inside of those relationships and families to cultivate love again and to become happy and again and to serve each other instead of demanding rights. This is such a big deal, this learning to serve each other, and to be getting out of this you have to be extremely stereotyped and extremely rights driven to be happy. And you might accuse me of being, well, you're stereotyping now, and I'm saying yes, I might be stereotyping, but I might be telling some people that we are living right now, or we're starting to live again, a construction of relationships which has more to do with their biological basis, with their hormonal basis, and which with the basis of what is happening in our brains, and that we are going right now in a society which has said only social construction, how I construct my sexuality, this is how I'm going to become happy, and this is not where we are going right now. So we're going a very traditional path, which is very much mixed with modern aspects and with modern research about the intuitiveness of femininity, about the strength of femininity, about the capability of receiving again, that this embodies a strength, and a man who becomes so, let's say, low that he would serve a woman, that he would protect a woman, that he would, like being almost like demanded by a woman to serve her, to pursue her, to be around her, to be attentive to her, to embody this masculinity, and to take ownership and responsibility of a family and of a relationship. This, he could be accused of being in a fragile role there, or in a lost role, or being only at service now then to a woman, and losing his independence and his individuality. I understand those argumentations, those arguments, and we have to think about a lot of things. I hope it helped a little bit to open up a discussion, to open up a new thinking of a new construction of femininity and masculinity, about healing, about containing ourselves, and about being contained. And if we are containing ourselves more again, and somebody who is more containing, this person also opens up more, and so we are growing in love and in trust, and in a relationship which is really being embodied as one, in a very natural sense. And this is something I've been thinking about, and I've been reading research about, so have fun researching. If you want to subscribe to my channel, if you like it, and if you like to leave a comment, if you're interested in one of my coaching programs, you can get on the waiting list. Send me a mail to christina@christinajunge.com, and I'll get back to you and to see if we are going to be making a good match at working together on some aspects of what you want to work on. Thank you very much, my dear community. Check out those videos which are coming up, and have a nice day. Bye.